Then, hello everybody, and welcome to today's lecture as part of the lecture and discussion series in Digital Interculturality. Okay, so I would ask everybody, if you can, to put your cameras on now and to get ready for the lecture. So today's lecture is about the use of virtual exchange in digital and intercultural competence education, and is being given by Rieder Anita Barmettler. And also Marta Giralt, but as I understand it, Marta is with us more in spirit than in any sort of material form. She can't be with us today. Yeah, so as you know, the lecture series is organized by ReDICo, the interdisciplinary project strengthening intercultural communication, and it is part of our series. Before I hand over to Maria and to Anita, I want to tell you something about the both of them. Maria is at the moment in Lillehammer in Norway, but generally she's based at the University of Limerick in Ireland, where Maria is Associate Professor in Applied Linguistics, and she is also the Assistant Dean of Equality, Diversity and Inclusion at the University of Limerick. Maria's research interests are in transculturality and intercultural communication and cross-cultural dialogue, and Maria has worked in several international projects within this area. Her work focuses on inclusive pedagogies, representations of ethnic diversity in the media, social and economic equality more broadly, and with a specific focus on the use of language in the production of social and in the production of power and social conflict. Anita Barmettler is also part of the German department at the University of Limerick, where she teaches German language, culture and history, as well as European film, and she teaches also on the Masters in Education. Anita is involved in several European projects focusing on intercultural communication and virtual exchange and inclusive pedagogies. And her research interests include transcultural literature and cinema, intercultural communication, and language learning. Okay, so that is a short introduction to Maria and to Anita today. And yes, I would like to hand over to the both of them.
Thank you, Fergal.
Thanks. Welcome to our presentation, Digital and Intercultural Competence through Virtual Exchange. Maria and I will guide you through the presentation, and I would also like to mention Marta, who can't be here today, but who helped with the content. Here's a quick overview of the presentation. We will have some interactive parts in it, but don't worry, you don't need to speak up, and you can stay anonymous if you want. So we'll talk about intercultural citizenship and what it means to you at the beginning. Then we go into what is virtual exchange and have a look at different types of virtual exchange and its impact on intercultural learning. Maria then covers TRIP. TRIP is an Erasmus Plus project as an example for green internationalization for student, teachers and institutions. And then we want to ask you as students, how can we convince you to join a digital intercultural training? So, but before we start, we would like you to answer this question. What does intercultural citizenship mean to you? You can either scan the QR code, or you can use that link, Answer Garden. Just put it, submit your answers. You can submit more than one answer, and then we'll have a look at your results.
Okay, so we have agency, participation, legitimacy, being a world citizen, inclusion, Feeling responsible for unknown persons. Not much yet. Uncommon combination. Hopefully you'll know more by the end of this. Understanding one's own culture. That's great. And a lot of these quite close to what is envisioned by the concept. Communication between cultures. Yeah, very good.
Great. Yeah, that is, some of them are very close to the original definition. And we have here a definition by Michael Byram, who wrote a book, Teaching and Assessing Intercultural Communicative Competence, which was first published in 1997, and an update has been released in 2021. He is basically the big famous person who talks about this intercultural communication and citizenship. So he says intercultural citizenship is the development of competences to engage with others in political activity across linguistic and cultural boundaries, both within and across state frontiers. International bonds and the reduction of prejudice are the intended outcome, and cosmopolitan aspirations may well involve at the same time. And intercultural citizenship education creates the potential for dialogue. And I think this is the main sentence we have to keep in mind, because dialogue obviously is essential for our world we live in today. Apart from the Byram originally focused on intercultural communication amongst language learners, but with the globalization and migration movement in mind, it is more and more needed to include everyone in teaching intercultural citizenship and learning it. Apart from the intercultural encounters that don't just happen when you go abroad, but also come to you, there are other reasons why intercultural citizenship is necessary in the digital age. Developing cultural citizenship also focuses on communication in the age of social media. Many online encounters are casual and not as meaningful as in real life. Also, how do you deal with online encounters? It is easy to hide behind the screen. The whole netiquette needs to be redefined, and digital literacy has to be developed. Students also have to learn how to navigate in the sea of material we find on the internet. And another aspect is how we relate to each other. In order to support these changes in society, virtual exchange is a tool used to educate in exactly these areas. What is virtual exchange? Here in a nutshell. Virtual exchange is a practice supported by research that consists of sustained technology-enabled people-to-people education programs or activities in which constructive communication and interaction takes place between individuals or groups who are geographically separated and or from different cultural backgrounds, with the support of educators or facilitators. The following points should be included in a virtual exchange. It should be sustained, so it should unfold over time with regular, intensive interaction. It should be technology-enabled, using new media, digital or mobile technologies. Preferably, it should be based on regular synchronous or near synchronous meetings using high social presence media. It's people-to-people, involving inclusive intercultural collaboration and dialogue that bridges differences and distances and inspires action with a long-term positive impact on relationship. It is learner-led, following the philosophy of dialogue, where participants are the main recipients and the main drivers of knowledge. Learning through dialogue means that participants will be seeking mutual understanding and co-creating knowledge based on their own experience. It's facilitated. Trained facilitators or educators support the sessions. It's educational. It's usually integrated in formal or non-formal education programs. And the activities are to develop are measurable, and they also increase the skills, knowledge, and the attitudes that foster pro-social behavior. And it's structured to foster mutual understanding. It covers topics related to identity, empathy, perspective taking, critical reflection, intercultural understanding, and helping participants to engage in constructive conversation. A key tenet of virtual exchange is that intercultural understanding and awareness is not automatic outcomes of contact between different groups and cultures. So virtual exchange aims to allow an increasing number of people to have meaningful intercultural experiences as part of their formal or non-formal education. The following terms are sometimes synonyms for virtual exchange. For example, telecollaboration, a field in the field of language learning, or globally networked learning, or collaborative online international learning, or online intercultural exchange. But what is not virtual exchange are the simple MOOCs, so these massive open online courses with no sustained interaction between small groups or students, for example, FutureLearn or Udemy. Distance learning courses, creating social media groups, or unmoderated, unsustained, or unstructured programs. So in the following slides, I'm going to show you a few examples of how virtual exchange can be implemented. The first scenario is virtual exchange that prepares or follows up a physical mobility. So the virtual exchange takes place either before or after a mobility exchange, and it focuses on the preparation to the exchange, or it reflects on the experience. It is also reinforcing internationalization at home, which Maria will then talk about in more detail later on. So the example I'm going to give you is the ITEL Prep project. There were participants, they were undergrad students from a variety of disciplines set to go on their period abroad. They had to complete a series of telecollaborative tasks, working in pairs or small groups over an 8-week period. Ideally, they were paired with someone of their host university. The students needed to present information about the home university and received information about the host university. They learned about the host country and about what to expect when living abroad. They were also asked to compare the university life and the academic system in the two countries. In language classes, they were asked to switch to the language of the host country for certain parts, discuss films of the two countries, or present a book from an author. When speaking to the students afterwards, this helped them immediately to have less anxiety, and often they met their partner when they were abroad. The second scenario is virtual exchange as an intertwined activity with physical mobility. So the virtual exchange and physical mobility are one single educational experience. It can also, but not necessarily, happen while students are abroad, and it's part of a specific initiative. The activities of the virtual exchange then are linked to the mobility. The example here is EuroWeek. It's an annual event organized by Prime Networking, a European network of 17 universities. It's a one-week academic conference gathering students and academics from member universities. Students from 2 or 3 international institutions cooperate in teams to develop a project online during the months before the EuroWeek event. Then during the conference week, the teams present the results of the research projects and attend other workshops while competing for prizes. Other events take place during that week, for example, an international food fair or a gala dinner. The third scenario is virtual exchange as a standalone activity. So the virtual exchange is recognized as a single individual activity. It can be offered within a degree of a practicum or compulsory or elective course or a general course. It supports internationalization at home and inclusion. I have not, I'm not going to show you an example here because Maria will talk about the TRIP project, which is a standalone activity in more detail after. The fourth one is virtual exchange as a component of a course. So the virtual exchange is a required part of the course and you get a certain percentage for it. The recognition is linked to other course requirements, for example, the course learning objectives. It gives the whole course an international dimension. The example here is the virtual exchange that was part in a module called Communication Across Border. The students participated in a virtual exchange organized by Sharing Perspective Foundation. That's an outside organization that deals with the whole bureaucracy of organizing a virtual exchange. Because the organizer of the virtual exchange had access to participants from different countries, the groups were very international and students came in contact with people from different cultural backgrounds. The pedagogical approach follows a blended learning module where face-to-face lectures are combined with the Cultural Encounters programs series of interactive open online courses. One of the tasks, for example, was that they all wanted to cross the border, but not everyone had the same passport. For Europeans, it was very eye-opening because they realized how privileged they were with their passport comparing to others in the group. They also discussed current topics, sharing different perspectives, and so on. Sometimes virtual exchange can also be a mix of different scenarios. So one very positive side effect of virtual exchange is that it enables inclusivity. Virtual exchange is accessible to those people who would otherwise not have an international or cross-cultural experience. Students, for example, who can't go on a mobility or travel, so the internationalization at home. For example, during the pandemic, we created an Erasmus replacement module, which included virtual exchange. Or in our university, we have a student who is in the wheelchair and can't travel. And he was delighted that he was able to actually have a virtual exchange in German, in Spanish, and in French, because he does the 3 languages and get in touch or in contact with people from the country like that. Also, participants from remote and closed areas such as Gaza, Syria, Libya, and so on can participate. And members of the so-called hard-to-reach communities, such as the refugee community, diaspora community, or non-English speaking communities. Also, virtual exchange doesn't need to be in English, it can be any language, whatever suits you best. Now let's see the impact of the intercultural communication. So it develops, studies show that it develops critical digital literacy, language skills, disciplinary skills, and intercultural competence. So, for example, students develop skills for successful intercultural interaction and the ability to manage and resolve conflicts which may occur. They learn to adapt to cultural perspectives and practices different from their own. They develop a critical understanding of cultures, including reflection on their own perception and distancing from some of their worldviews. And I also have here some student voices to hear what they said. For example, to learn about other cultures and the ways of seeing the world, or engaging with people of different cultures and values. To rethink what we previously never think about. Or also very critical here, I tend to generalize on the whole country because I met 2 people, but they realize that they have to stay open and not everyone is the same, that you can't generalize. And the following slide shows testimonies from language students who participated in virtual exchange. Certain parts of their virtual exchange had to be in the language of the partner. Also here, it was exactly the same. Understand different views of people. Language isn't just about grammar and speaking. And others were a bit more negative. For example, they didn't see benefits as learner of a language. They did understand different cultures, but this did not help with them and the language learning. But let's hear what experience you had with virtual exchange. We have here a QR code that leads to a Padlet. You can add your experience you had to different sections on the Padlet, and we'll give you about 5 minutes, and then we'll have a look at it. So have you had experiences with virtual exchange? If yes, what types? What questions were you asked to do? What tasks did you have to fulfill? And so on. I'm also trying to get the link.
If you go to the Padlet, you will see these questions again, so you don't have to remember them now.
I'm just going to put them into the chat.
And in order to post, I would suggest that you don't use the plus icon, but just post a comment under each of these questions so that they all stay in the one column. Oh, and could you explain acronyms like COILS? I wouldn't be familiar with that now.
It's collaborative online international learning. It's another international online. It's another expression, yeah.
Virtual escape rooms, brilliant. And when you reflect on the questions of what was good and not so good, maybe keep in mind or ask yourself, has this enhanced your intercultural competences? Your feeling, you know, as a kind of a world citizen, intercultural citizen? These are questions you might consider here.
Did it open your eyes to other views?
And maybe some of you have had both a physical and a virtual mobility or exchange. How would you compare them in terms of what was good or not so good? Time differences, yeah, I can imagine that's a challenge.
That's even a challenge when you have only 1 hour difference, because
yeah,
you know which time is meant now.
Very good. Editorial online tools, so some digital skills. Rapid cultural exchange, great. Language learning benefits. Internet connections as a challenge.
Also, the organization of the group members, I think it's everywhere the same. Some are more engaged than others. Yeah.
You'd have that in a physical classroom as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Subliminal messages can be overlooked in virtual communication. Cultural misunderstandings, data security.
There's some great examples. Can I ask, I hope I'm not overstepping here, the one who said that they documented a theatre festival, to maybe explain a bit more about that. That sounds very, very interesting. If that's okay.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. Will we carry on so?
Yeah.
Sorry, which one did you ask to speak out? I think I didn't get it. Maybe someone else didn't get it too.
Good. The one who did post about the theatre festival, because it sounds very interesting. Like, I would like to know more about that, to be honest.
Yes, that was me. I'm Yves Tauschitz from Berlin. I actually did this for the Goethe Institute in Almaty, and we did a blog together with students, and it was a great event. So the festival itself was in Almaty, so most of the group was there. I can also turn on the video for now, but so most of the group was there. I was actually at the time with my family on vacation in Edinburgh, so there was the big time difference. So Asia, so it was 6 hours, and I led the workshop. And some participants were also there from Germany and even from Russia in late 2022. And it was a great event because everybody was participating. The online participants were sent videos of the performances, and they wrote articles together, did interviews together, even some online interviews, but sometimes they just prepared the questions, and so the offline participants could go and take an interview. So it was a great experience of a high flex event. It's not only hybrid, it's like all parts, because it was hybrid. I was online, they were offline, but yeah, there were other online participants as well.
That sounds great. Was it mainly in English, I assume, the main language?
It was in Russian because the lingua franca with Central Asia, basically. So, so the working language was in Russian, but we were publishing our blog in German because it was for the Goethe Institute.
Oh, very nice. Sounds very good. So you can get very creative with virtual exchange. Like that would be more of the intertwined scenario where you then actually meet up and have a big event out of it.
Yeah, let's move on. Thanks so much for all your contributions. We'll have another little discussion question there at the end to talk more about internationalization at home and the kind of strategy that I'll explain to you as an example, the TRIP project. But first of all, just to put this in a larger context of what's going on in academia or in academic institutions in the virtual, that includes virtual exchange as well. So internationalization at home is the purposeful integration of international and intercultural dimensions in the formal and informal curriculum of all students within domestic learning environments. Why do we do that? I mean, Anita has already explained why do we actually do virtual exchange. Not everybody can go abroad. Not everybody has the financial means or the physical ability to go abroad. And then, of course, there are other environmental factors as well that would, you know, that are seen as, it is just seen as valuable to do exchange virtually so that we can protect the planet as well. Why intercultural competence? We spoke about that in terms of the intercultural citizenship. Migration has meant that we have very diverse communities, very diverse nations. It doesn't necessarily mean that we work cross-community and cross-culture in our kind of home context, but definitely the physical exchange would of course encourage that. It encourages students to make contact and to work together with students from other cultures. And the virtual exchange does that in a digital environment or a virtual environment, so that, you know, gradually and over time we become more, I suppose, competent in dealing interculturally, also in our home context. Internationalization has become a key priority for higher education across the globe, but it's not really being implemented in a coherent way yet. The skills are not there yet everywhere, so there's a bit of a skill deficit, and there's no common formula or common strategy yet across higher education across the globe. And this is what the TRIP project wants to do. It wants to develop a common strategy that can be implemented everywhere on 3 different levels: macro, meso, and micro. But I'll talk to you about that in a few minutes. But generally, internationalization at home means to give students the opportunity to develop intercultural skills at home through virtual means, and through a variety of other means, also engaging, of course, with international students on the home campus. And it also falls into the broader context of green internationalization. And the next slide will make it clear why we do that. It's a lot more than just a CO2 climate crisis. We have massive environmental problems that raise the need to get creative. How do we work towards intercultural and social cohesion worldwide around the globe? If we don't want to travel that much anymore, if we want to protect the planet, can it be in a blended? Can it be done in a blended manner or in a virtual manner? And you've shown so many creative examples of how this can actually work. And now it's to find the best ways that have been proven to actually develop intercultural skills that would come very close to what the experience would be like for physical mobility as well. So internationalization at home and green internationalization should also be seen in the context of sustainable development goals. That's on the next slide, Anita, or the global goals that hopefully most of you will be familiar with. They are a collection of 17 interlinked objectives that are designed to serve as a kind of a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity for people and the planet for now and into the future. So these sustainable development goals require that all nations work together towards those goals, and ideally not just physically in physical mobility initiatives, but mainly also virtually. So that's what we'll try to do with internationalization at home initiatives. Next slide, please, Anita. So what do we mean by green internationalization at home, or internationalization at home? When you look at traditional internationalization, we meant by that the comprehensive internationalization as a strategic coordinated process that seeks to align and integrate policies, programs, initiatives, positions that colleges and universities might have, more or less globally oriented and internationally connected. So a lot of what, if you're a student at a university, a lot of what's going on behind the scenes on an institutional or even on a curriculum development, program development level, you wouldn't really necessarily see that, but there's a lot going on there to make this possible, to implement it on a university level, even in the traditional internationalization initiatives. So for sustainable and green internationalization looks a bit different. The greening of comprehensive internationalization is a strategic, coordinated process that aligns and integrates internationalized policies, programs, initiatives, and outcomes to position colleges and universities as more eco-literate and globally connected institutions committed to the education for sustainable development. So it relates to curriculum design, but also green mobility, virtual exchange scenarios, and of course involves a lot of skill development, upskilling for faculty, so that they get educated in terms of their mindset, in terms of their commitment to sustainability, and then also to support it and implement it across the various programs. Next slide, please. So here we have the sustainable development goals that require us to work together in international communities, in cross-national communities, and with green internationalization or internationalization at home policies, we are thinking about how this can actually be done, how can this be implemented on the ground for students, for staff mobility in the various programs. So that as a context then to the TRIP project, which is on the next slide then, which tries to, or sorry, no, yeah, there's one last slide here about green internationalization. So fundamentally, the task is to articulate not just a set of policy proposals, but an alternative worldview to rival the one at the heart of the ecological crisis, embedded in interdependence rather than hyper-individualism, reciprocity rather than dominance, and cooperation rather than hierarchy. So green internationalization means a lot more than just, okay, we are replacing physical mobility by virtual mobility, and just try to replicate it as much as possible online. It also relates to a change of mindset, of hierarchical, taking down hierarchical structures and dimensions, and kind of work towards true cooperation and collaboration towards the fulfillment of the Sustainable Development Goals. So now the TRIP project on the next slide offers that kind of a framework that we are at the moment still missing for higher education institutions, and develop internationalization and at-home policies that are inclusive. Then the next slide, internationalization has become, as I said, increasingly recognized as a key strategic priority, but there isn't yet a strategy. So that's what TRIP tries to do. It tries to work on this on different levels. So at the macro level, it looks at institutions and societies, the relationship between different institutions within a nation, but also then outside nations, the different networks that exist or that we want to create in Europe and across the globe. So that's the kind of macro level. What is the role of institutions in all of this, in the greening of internationalization, and on policy levels in terms of internationalization at home. Then the meso level looks at innovative curriculum initiatives and pedagogies. So that's to develop new programs that incorporate a substantial part of greening initiatives, of internationalization at home initiatives that allow students to work cross-nationally, cross-culturally. And that requires an adaptation of pedagogies as well. It requires inclusive pedagogies that requires an internationalization of curricula that, try to move away from the few white scholars that are often in reading lists, for example. So it requires a whole new strategy of internationalizing the curriculum that is more inclusive in terms of disability, more inclusive in terms of race and ethnicity, gender as well, and all the different grounds that have been identified as marginalized grounds. So more inclusive pedagogies, and a reworking of the curriculum. That's the meso level then, different staff working on programs. And then the micro level is basically what the students then get in their different programs. And that would involve e-modules that creates the opportunity for everyone to engage in internationally oriented and challenge-based learning that involves virtual exchange with peers from partner institutions. So the project TRIP focuses on Sustainable Development Goal 4, which addresses inequalities in access to education and opportunities. So for example, looking at the micro level and by offering intercultural virtual societal challenges or e-modules that are virtual societal challenges, the project provides opportunities for students from disadvantaged and displaced backgrounds who are often unable to engage in mobility, so that they can enhance their transversal skills cross-institutionally as well. The next slide. So we work on these various different levels, and you'll see here, I'll just go over the next two or three slides very quickly because it's not really relevant to the kind of student experience, but there are 3 different kind of work packages as part of TRIP, and the first one is the focus on teacher and support staff upskilling. Obviously, a lot of upskilling is involved, especially if staff have been teaching a traditional kind of a curriculum for most of their careers. There is a lot of upskilling required in inclusive education, inclusive pedagogies, and also, digital upskilling, of course, as well. So CPD, which is continuous professional development courses, have been developed here as part of this work package. Staff can earn a digital badge. It's based on a kind of a train the trainer approach, where there's a consortium, obviously, for TRIP that have developed these courses, and they train other staff from other institutions. So it's a kind of a chain of events, a train the trainer approach for capacity building at the various institutions. There are 3 different workshops, so introduction to key concepts and guiding principles of TRIP, internationalizing the curriculum and teaching practices, and then finally intercultural communicative skills development inside and outside the classroom. So these are the 3 different professional development upskilling workshops that we created. Then secondly, the second work package focused on governance and quality assurance. So that's the more institutional level. And there's more on the slide coming. So a comprehensive transnationally accepted definition of a responsible international university. So what is that actually? Policies need to be written to kind of set that for different universities. A toolkit has been developed for higher education institutions to develop inclusive internationalization at home, and a certificate in quality assured internationalization at home that different institutions can earn if they implement the TRIP project at their institution. And then finally, and that's the more important one for this lecture, the focus on student upskilling. So what does this look like for students? What kind of virtual exchange initiatives does the program offer? So it's a virtual challenge-based workshops for students, for all levels of students. And they will get in contact, they will work together with multicultural interinstitutional teams around 3 themes, and with a focus on intercultural awareness raising. So the 3 themes that they will work on, or we are piloting it at the moment, so students are actually working on it this semester, are environment, gender equality, and race equality. So these are 3 modules that we have developed for students that run over several weeks. And a training manual has been developed that every institution that is interested can adopt, can follow. And again, it's a train the trainer component. There in intercultural communication workshops offered to the trainers or to the various lecturers that decide to make these modules part of their modules. So, you know, a training manual is there, but also training sessions that are run virtually are existing as well for capacity building. Here are our project partners, just go over them really quickly. So several universities are involved or have been involved since, I think, 2020 or 2021. So it's due to finish next year, I think. Anita, isn't that right? We don't have a lot of time left, so which is why the program is being piloted at the moment for students, and also the upskilling for staff will be piloted in the new semester in January. Okay, so the virtual societal challenge modules, you might be familiar with challenge-based learning. It largely builds on the concept of challenge-based learning, and from what you've put down on the Padlet, some of you have had experience or used challenge-based learning in some of your modules or virtual exchanges. The challenge-based learning encourages students basically to solve real-life problems, right? Using different disciplines, knowledge from different disciplines, different approaches, reflection as well, different technologies, and they do that collaboratively with peers and with teachers who are the facilitators. And the teachers or the lecturers, they are not really traditionally delivering the challenge-based learning method or learning material, but they act as facilitators. So it's largely student-led. That is very important. And the students are solving a problem. And by doing that, they deepen their knowledge in a specific field or in various disciplines. They overcome a challenge, they take action, and then they share that experience. So it's a very student-centered approach that is normally used here. It's often used in 3 different stages. So the first stage tries to engage the student or present a problem to the student, or a big idea or something like that. Establishes a link between some academic content maybe and your own student realities. So something that is very close to real life experiences. And then secondly, the students then go off in different teams and investigate. They build the knowledge by carrying out research. And then lastly, they act. They try to come up with some kind of a solution that would overcome the challenge. And the solutions have to be evidence-based. And we, in the virtual societal challenges, we use some of these principles of challenge-based learning, but we had to adapt it considerably to the kind of the virtual environment, of course, the virtual setting. But it wasn't actually very difficult. It can be adapted really well. But the aim of the TRIP project then is to create at-home opportunities for students to do this at all levels, to critically explore different challenges that may be shared across the globe, or may be unique to a particular setting, and they work together to work out different solutions to these challenges with peers from different cultural backgrounds. And you can imagine the kind of solutions that they come up with are very creative because of the different cultural backgrounds. There's a lot of learning here, not just in relation to the different disciplines or the knowledge acquired in the different disciplines or the challenge and the solutions, but there's also a lot of digital upskilling involved for the students. They learn how to use different digital communication tools, video conferencing, instant messaging, how to use email effectively as well, as you said, to overcome time differences, navigate internet problems. All of these will stand to the students to overcoming these kinds of challenges as well. And so that's a huge transversal skill. And then, of course, also communication skills. Some of you have said that as well. And communication skills also involve learning how to listen, especially if there's interculturality and you work in an intercultural context. Active listening is really important to learn. And so again, a very important transversal skill. Presentation preparation, feedback sessions, reflection writing, and so on. Some of these have already been mentioned on the Padlet as well. So a lot of skills learned here as well. And then next slide, Anita. So here you see the different areas or the e-modules that we created. There's a fourth one, inclusion, that isn't a standalone e-module, but inclusion is present in the other 3 modules. So it is present in environment, gender, and race. And these 4 kind of content areas, they relate to different SDGs as well, and have certain objectives or learning outcomes, goals, and aims for the students. So they were chosen to relate to. Sorry, I lost my thought here. So no, I've said everything here. Yeah. So that's basically the structure of the e-modules, and they can be delivered fully online or flexibly as part of a module. So the first session is certainly always online, and then mostly the groups work in their own intercultural teams once they are established. So they meet quite independently, and different content sessions can either be delivered online for these intercultural teams or on site in the different institutions. So there's a lot of flexibility. It can also be delivered as part of an existing module or as a standalone module with independent ECTS. So there's a lot of flexibility here. And then on the next slide, you'll see the kind of structure. It's a 5-week kind of, or 6-week, 5-week structure that involves the kind of traditional areas of challenge-based learning: engage, investigate, and act. And we have a 4th area included in our model, which is evaluate. For accreditation, there has to be an assignment at the end. So you know, as part of that assignment, the students basically present their solutions, the challenge at first and the big idea first, and then what they did in terms of investigation, and then the solutions. So that's the structure. Anita will talk about, or will show you some examples, and we have a bit of feedback from the students that did the piloting, but we thought it might be interesting for you to see an example of a presentation that a group of students did on one of these e-modules.
Exactly. So yeah, so they have like two parts they have to achieve during that virtual exchange. One is they have to do a little poster, which you can, for example, see on the left side, and they have to do a little video. And I think I need to reshare because I didn't share my audio. Or do I need to share the audio in Zoom? I don't know.
Yeah,
I think you have to share it in Zoom, yeah.
Okay, just to make sure that I have it. Also get the YouTube link. So now this example is unfortunately not with international groups. That has been only with an Irish group. They were having a virtual societal challenge in environment, and they had a look at their university. I'm just going to show you a little bit of it. I'm not going to show you the whole thing.
Isn't it amazing that people can
you hear the sound? Yeah.
Yes.
be so similar yet so different? What seems completely illogical to one person may seem rational.
Welcome to the trailer for the presentation from Team Ireland for the VEC Eco Campus project. We are the University of Limerick, which is located in the Midwest of Ireland. My name is Maeve, and myself and my teammate Jackie are both third-year Bachelor of Arts students in the university. The University of Limerick, or UL for short, is an 130-hectare campus situated on the outskirts of the city of Limerick. We have the benefit of being close to the city while also being close to nature. Our idea for an eco-campus focuses on wildlife. These are our goals we want to achieve. Raise awareness, encourage biodiversity, create and protect habitats, build a campus community focused on our aims, forge a safe space for native animals, and source products locally and sustainably. We want to protect all animals on campus, from bees to badgers and spiders to swans. Ireland has a wide variety of species, but farming, urbanisation and pollution pose a threat to our biodiversity. We want UL to be a haven for birds, small mammals, insects and more. Our main plan for reaching our aims is to create awareness, which will hopefully change the students' behaviour. We want to create an app and have the app give the students information on the species they see on campus and the specific animal. This app will hopefully inform students and build a community between the students and faculty. We decided to conduct a short student survey to get first-hand information from the students of UL. The results showed us that the students are interested in getting involved in wildlife and conservation projects, but it seems that they have previously not had the right opportunity to do so. We want to get more students involved, engaged and informed on wildlife in UL. The students gave us their opinions on how they think UL can better inform students, and we got responses like creating a larger social media presence, introducing the topic to first years when they first enter college, and more email updates. Once a week on campus in UL, we host a courtyard market where local producers come to sell their produce. They sell fruit and vegetables, jams and chutneys, and more. This gives students an amazing opportunity to support local businesses and reduce their carbon footprint within the university.
Okay, so that was just an example. You can see they planned an app to
Welcome to the trailer for the present.
To inform about the wildlife. That was their solution-oriented approach. But they also had some research done about what actually is the issue. Students don't know anything about the campus. We need to inform them more, and so on. So as I said, this was unfortunately not a mixed group, but this is actually feedback from students from this Wednesday. Like we just had our last session with an International Virtual Societal Challenge. The topic was gender, and it was a German edition, meaning these were all German learners of German, and they came from Flensburg, and who was a German learner as well, from Spain and from Limerick. So it was a very international group. So what they said about it, that they have learned how to raise awareness for the topic. They were very interested in it. We should be more aware and open to these studies. And they thought they developed their intercultural awareness. Obviously, also working in international groups helped them to see other points of view. When it came to the actual language learning, because this was something special in that edition, is that they practiced their German and they also learned specific vocabulary. They had a level of B1, B2. And they also thought that they had to speak German constantly because one of the partners couldn't speak English. So the Irish student was actually forced to speak German, because usually she can always find a way to communicate in English. And it was a way of practicing speaking out loud in the sessions. But they also said in the group work, we actually did speak English. That was the other group. It was a very small group. On a technical level, they found that they learned to edit and join videos. One found Teams amazing. It was the first time he ever worked with it. It was nice for him to explore another platform. And they found it was great to use different apps. So all in all, it was a very, very positive experience. But in saying that, these students all did it without credits or any incentive. They just did it out of pure interest. So their attitude towards it was very positive from the beginning. Okay, Maria, back to you. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we'd like to hand back over to you now to see what you think about that kind of you know, what I would be interested in, first of all, talking about the trip. Would you do it voluntarily as well? Would you do it out of pure interest, maybe to advance your language skills or even for the intercultural experience? And then we have a little poll for you as well. We presented 4 different scenarios to you, and you have already experiences in one or some of these. But what we'd like to know is which one is the most appealing to you. So scenario 1, where the virtual exchange is kind of the pre-entry, or, you know, the pre-entry mobility part that prepares you for physical mobility or follows up in terms of reflections or, you know, reverse culture shock and so on. So it kind of frames the mobility. Then the scenario 2 would be a virtual exchange intertwined with physical mobility, where you have different tasks to complete while you're away, for example. In scenario 3, then virtual exchange as a standalone activity. And then scenario 4, virtual exchange as a component of a course. So we'd be interested in your opinion or your preferences, if you take into account the experiences that you've already made or what you've heard now about the trip. Which of them do you think are most suitable to students nowadays? And what are students most likely to actually do on, even, you know, if it was just voluntary and you wouldn't get any credits for them? So we have a poll set up, Fergal or Carmen, right?
Can everybody see the poll?
Yes, we can, yeah.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
So you only have one choice. So scenario 2 so far has no votes. That would be the intertwining of virtual exchange and physical mobility. So scenario 1 and 2 would be the kind of combinations, wouldn't they? But isn't that right, Anita?
Well, yeah, the number 2 is where you have more of a project you work on and then you meet for a week. It's not with the actual mobility where you go for a longer period like you do in scenario 1.
Yeah, but it sounds like people would be quite happy with scenario 4 or a mix, which is good news for TRIP. Great. I'm not sure if everyone has voted now, but that's a good trend. And maybe if you want to use the chat and give us a bit more context, what do you think? You know, I mean, TRIP e-modules, they do have credits, so once they implement it properly, they would be part of a module or a standalone module where you would get ECTS. If you want to tell us a bit more about, you know, whether or not that would be attractive to you, or do you think that would be it would be possible to implement that at the university you're studying at?
Maria and Anita, do you maybe want to stop sharing and we just go into the conversation? Would that make better sense? Maybe might be more inclusive. Sorry, yeah.
And we can also share the results of the poll.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we saw them. Yeah.
Yeah. What I find interesting is that scenario 3 is not popular at all because it's like obviously people want to have a certain either credit points or a mobility connected to the virtual exchange.
But are there any other comments from the audience about the various combinations or virtual exchange in general? Do you think it can do the job of, you know, giving people the kind of competencies that they would have in the past acquired during physical mobility? Is it replicable, especially for those who can't go abroad? So anything you'd like to say, any thoughts or opinions? You can also use the chat.
Or just talk, just use the microphone.
Okay, thank you very much. Then thank you very much to Maria and to Anita for a very fascinating and fruitful presentation. Just to tell everybody, especially the students partaking in the course and who need points, etc., not to forget the asynchronous session this week on the local campus. There you can look at a lecture given by Britta Schneider and May Rostum, Cosmopolitan Language, Cultures and Overcoming Methodological Nationalism in Linguistics. It would also be something very interesting, I think, for Maria and Anita as well. Yeah, and that just to remind you as well, on the local campus, you can look at the lecture, okay, in the YouTube link. And there is also a forum underneath where you'll be able to discuss today's lecture. And Maria and Anita are both heartily invited to partake here in the discussion. And then you will also be able to discuss the asynchronous lecture as well from Britta Schneider and May Rostum. And yes, just to tell you what's coming up next week. So today we had a wonderful lecture and discussion from Maria, Anita, and Marta in spirit. Then next week we're going over to the University of Vienna, or I think it's the Economic University of Vienna, and Nadine Thielemann and Martina Barokol, who's actually based in Jena, will look at they're going to talk about Turho debating the mine on Twitter, national and transcultural discourses on social media. Okay, so that'll be next week's lecture. And yes, thank you very much. Thank you again to both Maria and to Anita, and see you all next week. Be sure to discuss in the forum on local campus, and of course have a great weekend as well. Okay.
Thank you, Fergal. Thanks for organizing it, and
so
thanks
much.
everybody for being there.
Thank you.
No worries.